Hi there, beautiful dreamers, and welcome back to emmeyasoleildreamwork. A big part of doing some serious dream work is dreaming together and entering each other's dreams to help finding more details, clues, and thereby gain a greater understanding. As for example, when waking up in the morning knowing there was so much more, but that poor memory only got a glimpse of it. And then if then inviting a co-dreamer who will return to the dream together with you, the chance to reach more deeper increases a lot. I have talked about this before, and I have told you about how a dream student of mine followed me on a journey as a co-dreamer, and they helped me identify some person in a car by description, which mere presence in the dream made me lose all my force and ending up lying with my nose in the snow. This figure in the car had some double character, having both archetypal features and familiar, personal, known ones too. And I want to add that the method of using dream aspects having counterparts in real life in deep soul work requires the understanding of that an aspect can reflect both a dreamer and a mutual relationship without actually describing the real person. Because we perceive their personality traits through our own filters made up by our own experiences, fears and hopes. So it's never about judging or describing another person. And this is important to remember when working with dreams. It's about what you feel about her or him and what your common story is. It's about symbols mirroring aspect in yourself of which you are supposed to become aware. And by extension, it's also about finding traumas where other people are involved, of course, but as always, first thing is the first level interpretation, where everything in a dream is a dreamer. And this is important because if not identifying their own emotions, expectations, reactions and so on, it's actually impossible to discern outer impact from the own luggage. So when being able to do that, when knowing the difference between what's your own fear and another person's purpose to do harm to you, as things can play out in the second level of dream interpretation, then you are on your way to being able to also understand the meaning of a dream on the third level, where your dreams also gives information of a prophetic nature. And being able to separate fear of water, for example, and the feeling of being overwhelmed by emotions from a warning about nature disaster coming in form for example, a dream about a deluge isn't something one can do just like that. If not being born with a very clear sixth sense, of course. And even then, or perhaps especially then, I would say the learning of dream interpretation on the first level is really beneficial. And the serious dream work is really kindred to shaman work, since it's about learning to discern between different levels of consciousness or worlds. And the shaman who travels into another person's subconscious have to be able to separate her or his own senses from the client's and still be able to use their own senses in the work. So when it comes to dreaming together, that's a common thing in old native cultures where dreams have always been just as important as awake life. And just think about it, if a group of people were dreaming together, seeing the same thing, looking at it through own filters, and especially in this world today with all the different cultures and the ways of thinking, and think about the magnitude of the picture that would appear. So when it comes to religion, I would say seeing from different angles and through different filters, it's actually what it's all about. So if we could all dream into it instead, create a larger picture without the preference of interpretation, since the interest lays in getting a larger understanding instead of a limited one. Wouldn't that be nice? What if we could talk about a different perspective without getting stuck in the old rules from generations of fear? I would think that would make quite a difference to what's going on in our world today. And when talking about religion, there is a place in the Bible or two actually, which for me has always been the subject for interest about what happens when different individuals describe the same situation. It's in the Old Testament. A particular situation is described first in the book of Samuel and then in Chronicles, and the two of them being formed by independent texts of various ages. And the word various is very interesting since it means different ways of seeing or interpreting the same situation. So let me read the two passages for you here. The first from the Orthodox Jewish Bible and the book of Samuel. And again, the Hashem was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against them to say, "Go number Israel and Yehuda." And when reading the King James Version, the same passage says, "And again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, 'Go number Israel and Judah.'" And so far so good. It's God who is considered angry. But when going to the Chronicles, reading the same passage about the same subject, at least first here from the Orthodox Jewish Bible, and Satan stood up against Israel, provoking David to number Israel. And then the King James Version, the same passage. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. So confusing, isn't it? Suddenly Satan is involved where the Lord was before. And actually I would like to use dream interpretation here, looking at this from the first level of understanding. And then who would be the dreamer in this dream? Well, I guess it's the reader. So let's look at it from a level 1's perspective, using King James Version of the book of Samuel first here. Again means repeatedly. Anger means an emotional expression. The Lord means active, ruling aspect. An active aspect is the way one acts. And kindled means aroused or awoken inside. And against means projecting something. And Israel is a nation consisting of persons. And these are natural aspects of what's significant to that nation. So Israel would be then the Lord's own people, who would be aspects of choice, meaning the way one has to be. The Lord moved David, meaning affected, arose something into this David aspect, who is a king and warrior, and then quite an active aspect too, a strong one. And he's also one of the nation, a chosen one too. So this active ruling aspect, as in the Lord, is filled with the energy of anger, which is transmitted into the other active aspect, David, who is a subject to the Lord ruling aspect. A kind of change reacting is starting here. So this anger from the ruling active aspect is supposed to be used to count the natural aspects of choice. And what does this counting symbolize then? Well, it's about raising awareness of every single one of those natural aspects. It's about control. Go number Israel and Judah, said the supreme ruling active aspect to the subdued ruling active aspect, who is one of those natural aspects too. Go against yourself. The whole feels kind of turning against oneself, yes. So look here then. The Lord then is the over self, and this is not to be confused with the higher self, but instead the way you have been learned to act and behave. Rules which are to be obeyed, not to be questioned. And we all have those. And David is the way of acting in life, of course, affected by what one has been learned, like this backbone thing running the show. And in Israel, the more natural way of being, but of course also ruled by the succeeded rules in life coming from that over-self, directed by the way of acting in life. But somehow a little more inclined to walk their own paths, like a little bit like secular religion actually. And the Lord is angry with those natural aspects, and also this happened again, meaning the rules of the overself isn't 100% taken seriously by natural acting and reacting. And this starts a conflict inside, in which David, the aspect trying to act right according to the rules of the overself, is standing between a rock and a hard place, which means should one follow the rules or act naturally? Big inner conflict. So the higher know-how of the supreme rules, probably inherited through generations, clearly thinks control is needed. Every aspect has to be counted, must be able to count on. No free behavior can be allowed, and that may be breaking the rules of life, because that's threatening. But the David aspect, the most active behavior in life, gave the order further to one of his soldiers, meaning he gave it one more thought. And then this other active aspect hesitates, but anyway the result was that all of these aspects were counted, and nevertheless the strict ruler on top of things went bananas and showed kind of psychopathic features because he wasn't obeyed in the first place. And yeah, you can read about it yourself if you want to in the Bible. So these rules really had to be followed, and the natural way of being was subdued. And I think it's such a nightmare. Well, now let's look at the variant of the same event from the other perspective described in the Chronicles. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. So here the Lord is replaced with Satan. Seen as a strict ruled overself, getting all psycho killer on the natural behavior, there's actually no contradiction between the Lord and the common picture of Satan. But since there's a quite huge difference between the Lord and Satan for believers, this second opinion, the situation seen from another angle, is quite educating. If thinking everything God did was right in the Bible, the thought of that it was God's enemy who was there acting out put things on an end. And the sum of it all is that the dreamer is the one naming the aspect in this dream. Is it God or is it Satan? What would be your own feeling? And what would you think if this was your dream? How would you react if it was your own experience? And how do you reflect on the rules by which you are controlled? What's your own opinion on on that which has created your life rules? You know you are allowed to have your own opinion. You don't have to admit to being ruled by generations' opinions of what's right and wrong. It's up to you to find that out for yourself. And the one punishing yourself if wanting to act natural and free is your own ruling over self, the greatest ego aspect built by forefathers' expectations and fear of being judged. And if it's a religion or the one carrying out that religion's rules punishing you, that's an even larger reason to stop and think things through. For those who have a deep faith in Christian religion and perhaps other religions too, this may seem horrible, but think about it. Think about the overself, Lord, and his anger when he is trying to be righteous, acting in life like David, and the natural choice of being the nation, the multitude of aspects only wanting to be free and not ending up in trouble. Who do you want to be? Wouldn't it be nice to set your own rules coming from your higher self instead, the closest source you have to the highest spiritual being? This is possible only when not living in fear and being judged. Especially by an Old Testament God whose priority is blind obedience. So yeah, I'm quite aware of that what I'm saying upsets some of you, but the world really is depending on wise ones taking off the blindfolds, awakening to the inner truth and awareness of what the highest spiritual reality really is. That loving energy, which is not at all only male, and which is always a part of your own being, connected to a sacred place inside your heart. So turn inwards to find out your own truth. That's the best advice I can give you. The restricting religions are part of the shadow of the male god, the patriarchic over time, and the time is high for that inner change now. Because the outer is coming, for sure. The energies are remarkably strong right now, you would feel it too. The veil is really thin between worlds. Many are those who are feeling anxiety and fear. Inner traumas comes up, refusing to stay inside, and the political bubble gets more dualistic than ever. It's a cleansing that is unparalleled in this era we live in, since it's affecting the inner work really, really hard. It's quite a show out there too, and the best way to stay calm is to regard things as being a dream, actually interpreting it and thereby understanding at first one's own fear and wounds, and thereafter being able to see the projecting game more clearly and without getting stuck in it. So, my dear ones, that would be all for today, and thank you for listening, and thank you so much for staying tuned, and remember to subscribe to my monthly newsletter also, in order to take part of the special offer coming with each letter. So you would go to www.emmeyasoleil.com and push the submit button. And thank all of you for contacting me and for ordering readings, dream interpretations and horoscopes. And I'm always available on emmeyasoleildreamwork at gmail.com, and I will answer you within a week. So bless you all, and keep up that good work, and thank you for now. Bye.